Good day, everyone. Today, I will be going to discuss about the expanding church from the preaching of Stephen, 35 AD, to the council at Jerusalem, 48 AD. Stephen, Stephen preaching. Stephen is a man full of faith and of the Holy Spirit. Stephen also is one of the chosen of the apostles who would take care the needs of the poor of Hellenist believers. He became also a preacher and the first in the church having a vision that gospel intends open for the worldwide. He is also the first Christian martyr. If you are going to read the book of Acts chapter 6 down to 7 verses 57 to 60, there you would read about the story of Stephen. Stephen stood bold before the mob and preached boldly about the gospel of Jesus, about that Jesus is the Messiah. And one of his audience is Saul. And after he preached, he's sent to trial, and Saul is one of the person who give permission to the mob to stone him until he lost his breath. Saul's persecution. Saul is from Tarsus on the coast of Asia Minor and student of Greek Gamaliel. Saul became the leader to persecute the follower of Christ, both men and women. This happened after the death of Stephen inside the Jerusalem. Because of that, the Jewish Christians scattered abroad. They also become preachers of the gospel and started to establish churches whenever they went. Because of the zeal of Apostle Paul or Saul to persecute the Jewish Christian, it helps the expansion of the church. Third, Philip in Samaria. Philip is one of the apostles. Because of the severe persecution arising within Jerusalem, he went to Samaria for the refuge, and there he preached and also established churches at Gaza, Joppa, and Caesarea with Gentiles members. This city is a Gentile cities, but all having a large Jewish population. Fourth, Peter at Joppa and Caesarea. At Joppa, Peter raised to life Tabitha or Dorcas and stay in the house of Simon Tanner for several days. Peter saw a vision that comes from the Lord with a great sheet containing all kinds of animals as he stayed several days in the house of Simon Tanner. After he understood the truth about the vision, Peter went together to the mess of the messenger that sent by Cornelius, a man officer at Caesarea, to preach the gospel there. After he preached the gospel, the Holy Spirit descended to Cornelius and to all the member of his household and to his friends for the affirmation of acceptance in the church and approval to preach the gospel to the Gentile. Fifth, Saul conversion. If you are going to read Acts chapter 9 verses 1 to 22, there you can read about the persuading zeal of Saul to persecute the Jewish Christian believers on his way to Damascus. And there, the living Messiah show up to him. And, and on that event, Saul also lost his sight. But the good thing that happened to his life on that occasion, he became Christ believer. Saul before he is dreaded antagonist of the gospel. He is too much opposed about the story of Jesus and totally bitter against the equality of Jew and Gentile. Saul does not recognize Gentile and Jews would come together in one faith. But when Saul become Christ believer, now he become more powerful advocator of the gospel and greater advancer of the view the church that the gospel is open to all men, whether it is Jew or Gentile. In Christian history, no one could suppress the impact that Saul does in the world, later known as the Apostle Paul. Sixth, the church at Antioch. When the persecution occurred with the slaying of Stephen, the church in Jerusalem scattered abroad. Some of them went to Damascus. Others fled to Antioch, the capital of Syria, of which we can found the great province of Palestine. These Christian believers found fugitives whenever they went, and whenever they went, in every synagogue, a place separate for the Gentiles worshippers. There, they give testimony that Jesus is the Messiah. In result, many of these people put their faith in Jesus, and the church within the city started to flourish or grow, of which Jews and Gentiles come together to worship as equal in privilege. Because of the vulgar John worship of Gentile and Jews, the mother church, which is in the Jerusalem, sent Barnabas to examine it. Instead of condemning the church of its freedom, he supported it and stayed in the church. This means that also Barnabas enjoying with association of Gentile believers. Barnabas went to Saul home in Tarsus, 100 miles from Antioch. He brought Saul with him back to Antioch for the reason that Saul his for the reason that Saul wanted him to help him to teach the believers at Antioch, or made Saul his associate in the work of the gospel. At Antioch, also the believers of Christ became known as Christianity, a name applied not by Jew but by the Greeks. This sent also help for the poor in Judea in the time of famine. Their leaders and teacher is popular in early church era, including Barnabas and Saul. Six, the first missionary journey. Acts chapter 13 to 14. Under the guidance of the Holy Spirit, together with the affirmation of the elders, their two greatest leaders, which is referring to Saul and Barnabas, conducted an evangelistic mission work to other cities, persuading both Jews and Gentiles with the gospel. These are the list of the chosen city which their evangelistic mission happened. Salamis, Paphos in Cyprus, Antioch, and Iconium in Pisidia, Lystra, and Derbe in Lycaonia. And there, in each places, these two missionaries went and went to preach the gospel of Christ in the synagogue, for therein every Jew had a full right to speak, especially as like Paul accredited. rabbi. This strategy reached not only the Jew, but including the God-fearing Gentiles. They took also Mark as their companion in laboring the gospel of Jesus Christ. After that, instead to go home, Saul and Barnabas changed their plan. They turned to westward to revisiting the churches they had founded on their first missionary journey. When they get there, they appointed elders according to the structural plan of the synagogue. Lastly, the council at Jerusalem, 48 AD, Acts chapter 15. In society or organized group of people, there are two types usually presenting this group. One is conservative, defending on the past, and the other one is the progressive, looking forward the future. Conservative was formed purely Jewish people. They believe that salvation is only unlimited for them, or there is no salvation outside of Jerusalem. They did not believe that the gospel, that the salvation would also for the Gentiles. For this reason, for all the Gentiles who wanted to join them must engage in circumcision and practice or observe Jewish regulation. In contrast, the progressive leaders and teachers, which is referring to Paul and Barnabas, declare that gospel is for all the races. Because of both parties had different views, this threatened a division in the church. Now, no one would like to happen that. What would they do? They formed a council and held at Jerusalem to address the issue about the membership of the Gentiles and frame and construct a ruling for the church. We must have to remember or to take note that in this event or in this meeting, not only the apostles or elders are present, but also the whole church. Imagine that. All the believers waiting for a constructive solution about the conflict arising between Jew and Gentiles. And the conclusion of this meeting will be the law is binding for the Jews only and not for the Gentiles believers. Out of this decision, the transition from the Jewish church to a church for all people was completed. That would be all. Thank you for listening. God bless us all.